Hey fourth graders, welcome to lesson 14 for the year. Today we're going to be continuing our work on our bow hold. For class today you're going to need a pencil, your instrument, your bow. You're also going to need your music book or access to the PDFs on Google Classroom. If you haven't yet ordered a hard copy book, please do that. And then I'm also going to ask students to use a music stand in our lessons. It's really helpful to have a separate music stand instead of relying on everything being online on the computer. You can just set your book here and you can follow along with my video or you can follow along with us live in class. So let's gather what you need for class and then come back and join me. Thank you for gathering your materials. So what are we learning today in lesson 14? We're going to be learning a little bit about how to read standard notation. That means reading lines and spaces and having our note heads fall on a specific line or space and then translating that in our mind to a certain note name. So far we've been reading mostly what I call modified notation, like your packets 1 and 2 on Google Classroom are all modified notation. That means you just see a letter name. Now we're going to start reading, like I said, note heads on a line or space, and then you are going to translate that, like a language, into the note name in your mind. So most of our reading work of standard notation is going to happen in your orange book, your Essential Elements book. At the end of class today, for fun, we're going to try playing Hot Crossed Buns with our bow, since we already know how to play Hot Crossed Buns. That'll be a fun way of synthesizing the new information of holding our bow with something familiar, and as always, striving to make our most beautiful sound. So please get yourself set up, and let's begin our lesson 14. Let's start with one of our bow builders. If you'd like to open your bow builder packet, that's great, or it can be found on page 8 in your hard copy book. We'll start with our pencil. Let's form our best bow hold shape on our pencil. Again, you're taking your right hand, dangle your right hand fingers over the pencil, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle your thumb, tap the thumb on the tip, we're looking for that bent knuckle shape, and do what you need to do with your pinky. If you're playing cello, that pinky is dropped below, violin, perch it on top. If you're not sure how to hold the bow, I'm going to ask you to go back and rewatch lesson 12 and 13. Especially lesson 12. I go into detail on how to hold the bow. So for our bow builders today, let's start with I'm out of here. This is going to be a little game where we pretend we're waving our hand, saying bye-bye, I'm out of here. We're waving our wrist and we're keeping it loose and relaxed. You can try it up high like this, come down medium, and maybe low as well. All right? So that's our I'm out of here. Try that one. Wave your wrist. Keep your hand in its best bow hold shape. Next bow builder we're going to try is our knuckle turnover. So check your bow hold shape, make sure it's just how you like it. The fingers should be pretty close together. I don't want to see your pointer finger all the way out here. Wrap it nice and close. Pinky does what it needs to do. If you're playing cello, please drop the pinky up for violins. So we're going to do our knuckle turnover, which means we're checking that we have our bent knuckle shape. You can take a quick peek now, and then you can test yourself in a minute. Make sure that thumb is touching on the tip of the thumb on the back of the stick of the bow eventually, and here on our pencil, near your fingernail. So let's do our knuckle turnover. Take your best bow hold shape, rotate your wrist, and check. Ooh, is my thumb bent out nicely? If you see your thumb down like this, that's wrong. Flex the thumb out, come to the tip of your thumb. Let's try again. Best bow hold shape, knuckle turnover, and let's check our thumbs. You're looking for, it kind of looks like a nice little mountain shape there. So those are your 2 bow builders to practice for this week. Continuing on here, let's get into reading some standard music notation. You're going to need your book, or in the meantime, your PDFs on Google Classroom labeled Essential Elements Book 1. Could you please find on page 14, there's an orange box at the top of the page that says Theory, and it's a write-in activity. You get to write in with your pencil, or if you're using your PDFs, you can write on a blank piece of paper. And it shows you a fancy symbol at the beginning. That's your clef sign. And for violinists, it's going to look like a squiggly S, and it's called a treble clef. And for my cello players, it's going to look like a curved kind of backwards C with 2 dots, and that's called your bass clef. And that just tells you what instrument you're playing, and it also tells you the order of your notes, lines, and spaces. It's different if you play treble clef than if you play bass clef. So the order of the notes, if you follow along with me, look at your note heads, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 note heads in a row. Those are quarter notes, as we learned last week. Here are the names of the notes in order: D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Go to your first note in that theory box. Ask yourself, is that a line note or a space note? If you're playing cello, it's a line note. It should be your third line right in the middle. If you're playing violin, it's a space note. Next note, second note on the page there in your theory box. Ask yourself, is that a line note or a space note? Point to it if you have to. If you're playing cello, it's a space note. That note name is E, cellists. That should be on your third space from the bottom. If you're playing violin, it's a line note, E, and it should be your first line. So we're going to start to get familiar with how we read our standard notation, putting these lines and spaces and translating them in our mind to letter names. And it gets easy. The more you do it, the easier it is. At this point, I'm going to ask everyone to move to page 16, and we're going to be grabbing our bows, holding at the balance point, and playing some notes and rhythms in standard notation. So please meet me there on page 16. We're ready to move on to page 16. Let's hold our bows at our balance point like we've learned how to do. Again, please watch lesson 12 and 13 if you're not sure how to hold your bow at the balance point. And let's look at our first exercise on page 16. It's called Bow on the D string. So what note do you think we're going to be playing if the title of the song is Bow on the D string? You guessed it, we're playing our open D. And we have some of our new symbols in our notation. We have quarter rests, we have quarter notes, we have our fancy clef sign, which we just learned about, and we have our time signature. So we learned about special symbols in lesson 13, so I'll ask you to review lesson 13 if you want a refresher on some of the special symbols. Let's say our letter names out loud before we bow it on our instrument. And you can point along. I find that that's really helpful for 4th grade learners is if you point along to your notes. Number 47, say your notes in order. It's D because we're bowing on the D string. Ready, set, please say and point. D, 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 rest, 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 rest. D, 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 rest, 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 rest. Next line, D, 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 rest, D, 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 rest, D, 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 rest, D, rest. So hopefully by now you're memorizing what does my note name D look like in standard notation. Is it a line note or a space note, and where is it on our musical staff? The staff is the arrangement of line and spaces. Okay, let's try playing it with our bow at the balance point. Join me in playing position in 5, 4, instruments come up in 3, 2, and 1. Point yourself towards your music. Look at your music stand. Put your bow in the sweet spot. We're only staying on D, and we're just reading this rhythm, combination of quarter notes and quarter rests. Remember your down bow. We usually start on a down bow. You open your elbow to the right to start on a down bow. Ready, set, play 47. Rest, 2, 3, 4. Rest, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, rest, up, down, up, rest. rest. Go to rest position, put that bow on top of your right leg. Great job reading through your standard notation. We're putting all the pieces together, down and up bows, quarter notes, quarter rests, bowing at the balance point, and bowing in the sweet spot of the instrument. You're doing great. I'm going to ask you to pause the video and play number 48 on your own. The title is called Bow on the A String. So even if you've never read standard notation before, you can make an educated guess that that means the note head in number 48 is the position of your open A, your note name A. So please pause and practice number 48 on your own and come back when you're done with that. Thank you for doing number 48 on your own, reinforcing all your special symbols and where is the note name A, the note head A, on your musical staff. Let's move on to page 17. We're going to do the song called Raise and Lower. Raise and lower is referring to your right elbow, so as you're bowing on the different string levels, which we have learned in past lessons, your elbow has to go to a different position to change the strings. If you're playing cello, in order to get to your A string level, you have to raise your elbow up to get to your A string level. And it's just the opposite. If you're playing violin, to get to your A string level, you have to lower your right elbow. So we should pay attention to what our elbow is doing in order to make our best sound. Let's sing our letter names for number 49. If you're not sure what the first letter is, you can look back at the previous page and say, that one looks like my A. It is your A. You could also think to yourself, is that note high on the staff or low on the staff? Which note sounds higher than the other, D or A? So there's a lot of different ways you can start to get this material working and reinforcing for you. So let's sing our letters for number 49, starting on A. Ready, set, please sing your letters. A, 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 A. Rest, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 D. Rest, 2, 3, 4. Now there's a special symbol at the end. A double bar with 2 dots tells us to please repeat back to the beginning. So then you would go right back and you would play your A again with your elbow at the right position. Come to playing position in 5, 4, 3, sitting tall, 2, 1. Starting your bow on the A string, we're going to play raise and lower, and we are going to take the repeat. So be ready to go back to the beginning. Ready, set, play, raise and lower. A, 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 A. 1, 2, change your elbow level. D, 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 D. 1, 2, change your elbow level. A, 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 A. 1, 2, change the elbow level. D, 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 D. Rest, 2, 3, 4. Please go to rest position. Thank you, students. So you're integrating your knowledge of how to make your best sound, how to hold your bow at the balance point, and starting to interpret all these really important symbols. It's important that orchestra musicians can read standard notation. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to please practice number 50 and 51 on your own. Pay attention to your elbow level. The higher position note is always going to be your A for now, and the lower position note is going to be your D. And reference your earlier pages in the book, like songs 47 and 48, which tell you which one is A and which one is D, if you forget. Another tip for now is if you're using a hard copy book, you could just write the letter A or D underneath the note head. And you won't need to do that forever, but it's a good way to just kind of get started on memorizing your lines and spaces and which note means which. So please pause the video right now and play number 50 and 51 on your own and regroup with me when you are done with that. All right, thank you for finishing up your bookwork on your own. At this point, we're going to switch gears and I'm going to ask you to take out Packet 3 on Google Classroom. Packet 3 is full of new songs for us to try with our bow. Well, I shouldn't say all new. Some of them are songs we've already learned. So today, for example, we're going to find Hot Crossed Buns in packet 3, and we're going to try playing it with our bow. And you'll notice in packet 3, the notes are now written in standard music notation, but they also have the letter name written underneath for you to help us kind of ease into it. So please pause right now and open up packet 3 and find the song Hot Crossed Buns. So lucky us, we already know how to play Hot Crossed Buns. You could do a round of it on pizzicato just to remind yourself. If you're ready to move on, let's take our bow at the balance point and let's move our bow in the air at the speed at which we will play our notes for Hot Crossed Buns. And we're going to sing our letters at the same time. So remember, F sharp or F, E, D. Please bow in the air with me. Ready and sing. F, E, D. F, E, D. Next line. D, 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 D. E, 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 E. F, E, D. Go to rest position. Bow comes to the top of your right leg. There is one new note symbol in Hot Crossed Buns that there's two new note symbols that we haven't seen before. One is called a half note, and it's when you drag your bow for 2 counts like this. 1, 2. The half note has a hollow note head and a stem off the side. And you'll see that where it says F, E, D. The D there in the first measure is an example of a half note. Again, that's 2 counts like this. 1, 2. The next symbol that you might not recognize, they're called eighth notes. So in your song, when you go D, 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 E, 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 those short notes, they have a beam connecting them. Sometimes they're grouped in 2s, sometimes they're grouped in 4s. We would count them with numbers like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We add a little and to them. With your other music teachers, you might have learned them like this. Do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day. So you have all the knowledge that you need in order to play a song like Hot Crossed Buns. Now we're just learning what some of the new symbols mean in standard notation. So let's come into playing position in 5, 4, 3. Put your bow on the D string. 2, and 1. Set up your left hand for the start of Hot Crossed Buns. You already know how to play the song. Set up your F sharp. Let's try playing the song together now with our bow and now in standard notation. Ready, set, and here we go. F, E, D. F, E, D. Go to rest position. You may need to take a couple of minutes to just experiment around with your sound when you're fingering on the instrument and doing the bow. Try and kind of work through and find your best sound. You're going to want to make sure your left hand fingers, as we know, are compressing the string all the way down to the bottom of the fingerboard. If you only lightly touch, like we've learned in the past, if you only do a light touch and then try to do your bow, it's not your best sound. So compress those left hand fingers all the way down to the fingerboard and really engage the bow to the string. And you might want to think fast, fast, slow, and then fast, 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 or short, 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 right? So I'm going to ask you to try Hot Crossed Buns maybe 3 or 4 times on your own right now and ask yourself the question, am I making my most beautiful sound? And what can I try, what can I experiment with in order to find that best sound? Okay, so this concludes lesson 14, but you're going to keep practicing on your own right now. Remember, repetition is the most sure way that we can guarantee progress and improvement in our sound and in our learning and in our comfort with the instrument. I look forward to seeing you next time in a live class, and happy practicing, everybody.